And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host and author, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome back for the third time best-selling author Robert Dugoni, here to give us the inside scoop on his brand new book, A Killing on the Hill. Bob, welcome back to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I think I'm as excited as you are to be back, to be honest.
Yay!
I'm really excited about this book. You know how it is. You write. You can see the books behind me. I've written quite a few novels, and this one I just really, really feel good about. It was fortuitous the way it came about. It's a true story. The legal aspects are true. I was cleaning out an attic upstairs. I was trying to get rid of clutter, and I found these two huge scrapbooks. And inside the scrapbooks were all these clippings, all these newspaper articles, magazine articles. And of course, the one that jumped out at me was the murder at the Pom Pom nightclub on Profanity Hill. I mean, if that doesn't scream story, I don't know what does. So my wife's grandfather was a very prominent lawyer in Seattle at that time, a defense lawyer. He was young. He was in his 30s. And the story is about the shooting of a lightweight boxer at the Pom Pom nightclub by a gangster who was an owner named George Moore. And the trial that ensued became the trial of the century. And I know you know, because you've written in 1923, Seattle 1933 is not Seattle of 2023 or 2024. It was vastly different. And it's prohibition, it's bootlegging, it's the Great Depression, it's the have and have nots. It's a really, really stellar trial. And I was just really privileged to be able to find it and pull it up.
Oh my gosh. I think when you said, I was cleaning out the attic and I found all these old boxes full of newspaper clippings and scrapbooks. I think all of us simultaneously got goosebumps because, I mean, what an incredible, find to see, a headline like that, murder at the Pom Pom. I mean, like that just sounds.
I was thrilled. I mean, I was just absolutely mesmerized. And the amount of clippings, there must have been, there were dozens and very long, extensive newspaper articles about really what was the trial in Seattle. And it was that time where people didn't go down to the courthouse in shorts and T-shirts. People went down, it was entertainment. People went down there dressed in furs and full-length dresses and pearls and diamonds and suits and ties and it was an extravaganza, and almost to the point where people forgot that someone was shot and killed, and a lot of the clippings I had were firsthand accounts of this very famous Seattle detective from Seattle's Homicide Squad named Ernie Blunt. I changed his name, but in the book, his name is Ernie Blunt. And he worked with a very famous criminologist named Luke May, and that was his name. He was way ahead of his time. He was sort of CSI before CSI ever existed. And they figured out what happened in this club, and who the guy was that got killed and what happened. And in the middle of it, the protagonist is William Schumacher, a 19-year-old reporter who is completely fiction, who just pushed his way into the story and told me, let me tell this story. I'm so glad I did. He's 19 years old. He's naive. He's eager. He's hungry. It's the Depression. He can't lose his job. His parents are dependent on him. And he finds himself in the midst of something that is so much bigger than what he anticipated. The outcome is just really, really a lot of fun.
Oh my goodness. Well, Bob, I have so many questions because I am a historical nonfiction and fiction and true crime and mystery fan. So this is my jam, and I am so excited to get into every delicious detail. We are streaming live to 7 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So I just want to first say hi to everybody. Hey, mystery and thriller loving friends. Thanks for all the hearts up on Facebook. No matter where you're watching from, you're in the right place. This is the right time. It is Mystery Monday, because Mondays can be murder. We're going to make it a little less painful for you and get your week off to a killer start. So if you've been here with me before, y'all know the drill. If you're my OGs, and if you're new here, oh my goodness, we're so happy you're here. Here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors. You get to ask them anything. So ask this best-selling New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, all the places, best-selling author about his writing practice. This is, about his creativity, what makes a book great. Bob can answer a lot of good questions. He has sold millions and millions and millions of books. He's been on before, giving us the inside scoop on his Tracy Crosswhite series. This is a whole new world for Bob. Bob is going back to 1930, which is my jam. So let's get on into it. Sharon Bishop joining us from YouTube, saying hi, Sarah and Robert from Littleton. Hi, Sharon. So good to see your name pop up. And Sharon's clarifying that is Littleton, Massachusetts. We're so glad to have you. Welcome, Sharon. Thank you for all the hearts, you guys. Renee saying hi, Sarah and Bob from Southeast Florida. Hi, Renee. She is saying, what a find. What a find. What a find indeed. Thank you, Renee.
Like Christmas.
Like Christmas for a mystery and thriller writer. Yes. Kim joining us from Facebook saying hello all. Hi, Kim. So great to have you. Oh my goodness. Okay, we have so many questions. Let's dive right in. Renee wants to know, Bob, how did writing a historical fiction novel differ from your other writings? Let's start there. What a perfect place to start.
Yeah, what a great question. And you and I were just discussing this before we came on air. It's really hard because you can't just go out there and assume. And in this particular instance, 1933. It was a whole new world. There were no books out there on Seattle in this time period during the Great Depression, during Prohibition. I found a couple of biographies written by people that lived in that period of time, but really I depended heavily upon the newspaper articles and the newspaper clippings and the magazine articles. And then a librarian at the Seattle Public Library was really fantastic about providing me with maps and locations of businesses and where they were at on what street corner and everything. It was really difficult, but it was also really liberating because I didn't have to worry about cell phones. I didn't have to worry about computers. No one's gonna send an Amazon review and say, why didn't he just call somebody? That didn't exist. William Schumacher, the protagonist, the reporter, every day he was given 3 nickels by his editor, Howard Fishbaum, to call in during the breaks in the trial and tell him what was going on so that they could start to get the typeset going. So, it was like writing in a fictionalized world. But at the same time, I wanted to be true and I wanted to be accurate. And so I enlisted the help of some friends of mine who are older in their 80s, who grew up in Seattle during that period of time or remembered it and could tell me the buses they took, the restaurants they ate in, all those things. And then the other thing was I worked down there. I worked in Pioneer Square for about 3 years. And although I worked there, in the 2000s, a lot of those businesses are still there. The pergola, the old Pioneer building, all that stuff is still there. So I was able to draw on some of that as well.
But I think what people may not intuitively know is you're like, oh, every day his editor gave him 3 nickels so he could call the news desk 3 times and give updates on the case. But in order to write that scene, we have to first know that a call cost 1 nickel. That takes time to look up. We have to know what the telephones look like. Candlestick telephones, the one where you're holding one and you're like this. You have to know that there were phone booths. We had to know that, that there were phone booths in the courthouse. All of these things take time. Bob, walk us through your research. So, you had to look up all those things, right?
Right. I started with the newspaper clippings and I started with the magazine articles because they were very, very detailed and a lot of photographs. So photographs of the crowd outside of the courtroom to get in, and then I can see the booths, I can see the phone booths. The nickel was one of those things where you look it up online, you use AI, you do a lot of different things. I had a book. It was written by a guy who, when he was 12 years old, he was a newspaper boy. He was the guy standing on the corner yelling out, George Moore pleads not guilty, read all about it. And so I read his biography. And so there was a lot of information in there as well. But you're right. I mean, you can't, as I said off the air, I'm really impressed by those people that write about, the medieval ages and all, because you can't take anything for granted. You really have to look it up. And I've had some readers who had advanced reading copies, and they've been terrific about saying, I remember taking the 7 Baker bus out to, what was called Garlic Gulch back then, now Raymond.
Garlic Gulch.
Garlic Gulch, yeah. I remember Borachini's Bakery. I changed the name of the bakery, but they remembered the bakery. So it's been really a lot of fun, and it was such a fascinating period of time in Seattle's history, but in this country's history, because you really had the haves and the have-nots. I mean, here you had these people living in Hoovervilles who were starving. I mean, they were starving, and you had people sneaking out at 10 o'clock at night and having these gourmet dinners of steak and potatoes and salads, and then leaving 3/4 of them on the table. It was really amazing.
And actually, just to get a sense of those have and have nots. So Shu is out on his own in a boarding house paying $5 a month. That's how much the rent was. $5, just to give you a sense of scale.
Right.
$5 per month. And he had to go out on his own because his dad couldn't afford to feed him anymore, because his aunt had to move in with the family because her husband had tragically died. And these are the kinds of situations that families were facing. We can only afford food for this number of people. Therefore, someone's got to move out and go make their way, at a very young age. And I think that is a sobering look at life, because I think we have this idea that, it was so fabulous and fun, and it was hard and scary.
Well, and it created it created stress. It creates in the book, because what you have is a situation where you have William Schumacher, who's 19 years old. He needs this job. He's not a reporter. He talks his way into it by saying, he wrote for he's a writer because he wrote for the school newspaper for a year before he got out of high school. But it's the depression. His family's depending on him. He needs the money. He's only eating 1 meal a day as it is, and he gets this huge story dumped in his lap, because back then the reporters were embedded with the newspaper, with the police department. And if you wanted your press badge, it came from the chief of police. And that meant you didn't write articles that were critical of the chief of police or the police department. So here he gets this famed Seattle homicide detective calling him saying, "We got a murder up on Profanity Hill at the Pom Pom nightclub. Do you want it?" He's not even thinking, why me? Why not somebody else? He's thinking, wow, my good fortune. And he's off and running. And it's not until later that he begins to realize that nothing is as it's being presented to him.
I learned something. I spent 10 years researching my book, which took place in 1923. I learned something from your book, Bob, and I was fact checking because I'm a dork who does. But I didn't know that you got your press badge from the chief of police, and that makes so much sense because in New York, I actually don't know how the press badges were given, but I do know that if you criticized the police, you weren't going to get police sources. They were not going to let you come into the press room, into their offices to give you updates on the case. You were going to get exiled. And so, interestingly, when the when the third degree, which started to happen in the 1920s, which was police torture of suspects to get confessions, was revealed in the Wickersham report. Reporters actually would hear this tortured screams of suspects, but didn't report on it because they would not be allowed back in. And so
Right.
it's a very interesting thing that I loved reading that part about you that you put in there, because it really gives you a sense of, well, you're there to report, but you have to report in a certain way.
Yeah, there was a building down there, and it's much like the Flatiron building in New York. It was the exact same model. And in there was the mayor, the chief of police, the police department, the judges, and the city council. They're all sitting right next to each other. And the ironic thing is, in that same period of time, the mayor was impeached for corruption. And 6 months later, he was reelected.
You gotta corruption was well, it's interesting, right? Because it's very easy to be like, ha ha ha, back then, boy, were politicians corrupt. Yeah. And then you take a good hard look at the headlines in today's newspapers, and I'm not really sure we've come that far in 100 years.
I'm not sure we have.
Oh my God. Well, Bob, the comments are blowing up. So we have so many questions and comments. I'm going to jump right into them. Thank you all so much. We're going to get to every single one of them. Hi, Megan Beatty. We love you. She says, historical fiction based on true crimes is the coolest. Amen, girl. She says, I loved A Killing on the Hill and Broadway Butterfly. Oh, thank you so much, Megan. We love you. Jane Brennigan Kaufman. So great to see your name pop up, ma'am. She says, murder by the book. People had respect. Yes, ma'am. Robin Stull joining us, saying, hello, Sarah and Bob from Coeur d'Alene. Oh, thank you for that pronunciation, because I no parlez-vous français. So thank you. Chris joining us from YouTube, saying, I met Robert at a Seattle event. Such a talented and enigmatic author. Well said, Chris. Bob Dugoni is a talented and enigmatic author. Renee says, are you excited for LCC?
I am. LCC is Left Coast Crime.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I was really honored to be asked to be the guest of honor, and it's starting next week, I think on April 11th, and it's a great festival of books. It's writers and people who love to read. It's going to be here in Bellevue in Seattle, Washington, and I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, what a great question, Renee. Bob, thank you for letting us know. Melissa joining us from Australia, saying, hello there, Sarah and Robert. Hello to you, Miss Melissa. Thank you for joining us. Bonnie says, hello from Cleveland. Hi, Bonnie. What a beautiful flower profile picture you have. Thank you for brightening our feed with your flowers. Bob, I want, somebody question. Bonnie wants to know, were there any other finds in those scrapbooks that you put away for future storylines? Great question, Bonnie.
There are.
Robin wants to know too.
Yeah. One of the things that kept coming up was articles about a doctor being prosecuted for a treatment of a female of a woman, and you begin to realize what they're talking about is abortion. Now, I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. The politicalization of that has just made it a subject that is really, really difficult. But there were other articles about the opening of Long Acres Racetrack, which was a famous racetrack here in Seattle that my wife and her family, they had horses. They raced their horses there, and it was like the courthouse. It was the only gambling in the entire state. It was entertainment. It was a place that people went to be seen. And so I have a great idea for another book based on Long Acres Racetrack.
Ooh, that's so interesting. And of course, my mind went to the doctor was, abusing the female patient. So interesting that you read that differently. I haven't read the article, obviously. So very interesting. Cindy joining us from Facebook saying, hi, Sarah and Robert, giving us so many hearts. Hi, Cindy. Thank you so much. Renee saying, this sounds so good. Doesn't it, Renee? It sounds so good. Melissa saying, imagine times are so difficult. You have to evict a child as there is just not enough food.
Yeah, and that, one of the things that was really interesting is there were more suicides in Seattle that year than any other year. There were over 200, and there were mostly
Oh
men.
my God.
Yeah, men who took their own life because they couldn't provide for their families.
Mm.
And so it was not unheard of.
And actually, that's how Shu's uncle died.
Right.
Now I'm understanding. Okay, interesting that you found that 200 person statistic in your research and wove that in. Thank you for that. John joining us from Facebook from Northeast Ohio. Hi, John. So good to see your name pop up. Sharon saying, sounds like something out of Batman. Yes, Pom Pom Nightclub.
Doesn't
Murder
it?
on, wait, what was the name of it?
It's Profanity Hill,
Profanity Hill.
Yeah, it's now known as First Hill, but back then it was called Profanity Hill because the courthouse, the old courthouse, used to be atop the hill. And when the streetcars would break down, the litigants would have to climb the hill to get to the courthouse, and they'd be swearing the whole time. So it became known as Profanity Hill.
Oh my God, Bob, that is hilarious. I love that so much. Sharon says, oh my gosh, really looking forward to reading this. I know. And now I kind of want to go live on Profanity Hill, even though I don't like rain. So Seattle would not be a good fit for me. I would be seasonally depressed 300 days a year. Robin says she's going to LCC, Left Coast Crime, and it is her first convention ever. Yay!
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations. And I'm looking forward to meeting you. It'll be a great time. You'll enjoy yourself immensely.
Okay, Robin, go say hi to Bob, our guest of honor at LCC, and then post a selfie in our Mystery and Thriller Mavens group of you and Bob, okay? That's your mission for Left Coast Crime. Anybody else going to Left Coast Crime? Let us know in the comments. Erica joining us from YouTube saying hello from Mexico. I'm a fan of both of you. Wow. Oh, Erica, thank you so much. It's so great to have you. Sharon Bishop joining us from YouTube saying, hi, Robert, you are a new author to me and I am in. Oh, Sharon, thank you so much. So I always say here on Mystery and Thriller Mavens, I am here to connect readers to their favorite writers and introduce you to your next favorite writer. So has that happened? I think so. Mission accomplished. Which is a good time for us to pause here and let us know that, remind you that Bob's book, A Killing on the Hill, is not even out yet. Bob is coming on to give us the exclusive sneak peek and take all of your most pressing questions tonight before the book comes out. So let's get those pre-orders going. So whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, it is time to pre-order for my favorite woman-owned independent bookstore. That is, of course, Murder by the Book. And here is that link. Again, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, get your mitts on A Killing on the Hill. Okay, we're going to get some more of these questions. Bonnie saying, it sounds like your wife needs to write a memoir. Ooh, I know. Tell us about this racetrack. Was she her family boozing it up in Prohibition at the racetrack?
Yeah, no, she has an amazing history. Her, like, as I mentioned, her grandfather was a very prominent lawyer in Seattle. And his wife loved horses. And when she was a young girl, she grew up in Seattle, and she'd race her horses on the cobblestones and look over the side at the sparks coming from the hooves. So as she got older, she told her husband she wanted a place to have her horses. So, of course, he took a ferry all the way across Lake Washington. There were no bridges. And he came to this place, Bellevue and Kirkland, where no one lived. And he bought 120 acres. And there's 60 of those acres remain the horse farm. And they started racing their own ponies. They raced some very famous ponies that did extremely well. I think they had a Kentucky Derby racehorse.
Oh my God.
And it was, as I said, it was just a different era. I watched a video on the Long Acres racetrack the other night, and my wife sat there going, well, Papa knew him, and I met him, and he was a jockey I remember him, and because she used to take her horse to the racetrack, and she would race it in the morning. She would train it. So she's a really accomplished human being. Really, really an interesting background.
Wow. Okay. And now this Long Acre racetrack racehorse history is going to figure prominently in Bob's next book. Y'all heard it here first. Remember, you get the scoop on Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Robin says, Mission accepted, Sarah. Okay, Operation Selfie with Bob
That'll be
at
fun.
LCC for the Mystery and Thriller Mavens team. She's going to post it in our Facebook group. Remember, that's where all the good tea is spilled. We share our reads, we request authors, everything happening in the Mystery and Thriller Mavens Facebook group, free and open to all. So y'all pop on over there and join if you're not over in a minute. You're not already a member. Mary Lou joining us from Facebook saying, my husband was born in 1933 and he has read all of your books. He is looking forward to The Killing. It is on order. Mary Lou, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I think he's going to really enjoy it. I really do.
What's his favorite book of Bob's up until now, Mary Lou? Let us know in the comments. Chris is saying Robert is superb outside of his series, which are awesome, but his Cyanide Canary kept me up all night and made me angry and cry. I loved it.
That's an oldie. That's the first one ever. That was also a true story. And it is, I mean, you cannot make it up. And it is, there's just a really sad aspect to it, the whole thing. But thank you. That's a really nice compliment.
Yeah. I mean, Bob, I think if you can make a reader both really angry and cry and still love you, we've experienced the entire spectrum of human emotions here. They've gone from rage to sadness to still loving you, Bob, or maybe loving you more. So this is a lot's happening here.
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled.
Oh my God, I love it. Sharon is saying she just loved The World Played Chess and she still recommends it all the time.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Chris is saying, yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh, I totally agree. Bob, can you, how are you just starting to think about the Long Acre Racetrack book, or are you do you have a title? Can you give us anything else?
No, I just turned in the next Tracy Crosswhite book, number 11. I turned that in on Friday.
Wait, Friday?
Pardon me?
Friday you did?
Yeah, just this Friday. So I had a couple of days off. I was down in Los Angeles doing some events down there, and I came back up last night, and I just started pulling stuff up and getting into the Washington Historical Society archive and finding blueprints. They built the racetrack in 28 days.
Oh my God!
Because during the Depression, everyone needed to work. So the guy that was building it, he brought in 3,000 workers and they built it in 28 days. Fabulous. Really, really an amazing story.
I think the other thing too that people, I think most of the books books, shows, whatever that we see about Prohibition tend to focus on New York or the East Coast. And so it was also interesting when you said, that there weren't a lot of books, about there weren't any, you said, about Seattle. So you were really going into first source material to create a story about this time in a place that hadn't been explored before.
No, it was still very much the Wild West. It was still very much the Bowery. There were as many bars in downtown Seattle as there were churches. One of the most prominent people in town was a pastor of the Presbyterian Church. And he was the one that got a whole bunch of people to start voting about not allowing any vices in downtown Seattle. So, I mean, it was a really fascinating period of time. People wonder, why didn't Al Capone ever come this far out? Why did he not, Midwest, why did he not come out to Seattle?
Yeah,
because the police and the politicians were so corrupt. He would be competing against them, and he didn't think there was enough money to be made.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the other thing that I found really interesting, another little tidbit, is Wyatt Earp came to Seattle in the turn of the century, and he wanted to open a gambling house. And he opened a gambling house, and it was open for 30 days, and the police ran him out of town on a rail because he refused to pay them. And all the other gambling houses were paying the police, and so they told the police, get rid of him, and they did.
I'm sorry, Wyatt Earp, Wild West, Wyatt Earp opened a gambling house in Seattle. This is crazy.
Yeah, It was really, there's a rich unexplored history, but it is the history sort of the Old West and that period of time.
That is so interesting. Yeah, because actually the booze trail and then the drug trail ran from New York down the coast to Atlantic City, in to Philadelphia, then out west to Chicago from there. And that was how booze came into the country, or from Canada.
It came
But
from
that was
Canada.
how they were running it. And I actually never considered, oh, what about the West Coast?
Yeah,
Like, they're
no,
probably fine.
it was being run down from Vancouver, and they had these boats that would come down. And again, another interesting fact is that there was a lieutenant, and he left being a police officer because he could make more money bootlegging, and he became Seattle's most famous bootlegger. And the comment was that this guy commanded more police officers as a bootlegger than he did as a lieutenant.
And I believe that. And I believe that because, I mean, we have to remember, JFK, the Kennedys came out of bootlegger money. That, Blackjack was, his bootlegger name or whatever was a bootlegger. That's how they came to prominence. That's how they came to riches. And then those riches then, eventually, a grandson found his way to the White House. But it's like, we don't realize that this is pretty recent history and impacting, very recent history.
Yeah.
Ginger, welcome to the conversation, saying, I am looking forward to seeing you in Scottsdale. When will a new Kira Duggan book come out? I loved her Deadly Game.
The new Kira Duggan book is now in production, so I'll be getting some edits back on that soon. And I believe it's coming out April 2024.
Wow, Bob, you have a lot of irons in the fire. You got your Kira Duggans, you got your Tracy Crosswhites. Now we've got Shu. I mean, how your brain is creating so many different worlds.
I probably like you, Sarah. I love what I do. I mean, I really do. I really feel very blessed that I have the opportunity to do it. I have a World War II book coming out next year as well. It's called Hold Strong, 1947. It's a sort of a story that's never been told.
Wow.
Two guys did the most amazing amount of research, but they needed some help bringing it over the finish line. And at a request, I jumped in, and it's an amazing story. But kind of getting back to A Killing on the Hill, the other thing about the book that I think people are really going to enjoy is, although Seattle was very rough around the edges, at nighttime you didn't hang out down at the wharf. There was also a softer
I wouldn't hang out down at the wharf in the year of our Lord 2024.
Yeah. But there was a softer side to it as well. And there's a softer side to the book. And that's the side about Shu falling in love, with Amara and Joe Bikini. And, that whole romance that he's trying to also, navigate for the first time it's really very sweet.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Sharon saying, is there any historical fact that you really, really wanted to use in the novel, but just didn't fit into your story? Cool question.
Oh, that is a great question. The Wyatt Earp just didn't fit because it was too early. But I say that, and then I take it back, because I think there's a point where where Howard Fishbaum is telling Shu about Seattle, and he might have actually said that. So I'll have to think about that one, Sharon. I'm not exactly sure.
Oh my God, I love it. Renee wants to know, how did your wife's grandfather end up in Washington? Yeah, how did that happen?
He came from Spain, and he came via Cuba. And Washington was an area where somebody with ambition could still make his own way. You weren't dealing with places like New York, where a lot of immigrants came, and it was a place where you really had to kind of stand on your own 2 feet. But if you could, and if you did, there was opportunity here to be made.
Interesting. Okay, I hadn't thought about that. Robin saying, Al Capone had a home in Fontana, California. Still one of its few claims to fame. Ugh, my hometown. Interesting. Wow. Oh, Capone is a very fascinating character.
Really fascinating.
I have done a lot of research into Mr. Capone. Anne says, we are discussing Her Deadly Game in my book group this week. Yay, it's a new one. That will be
enjoyed it.
so much fun. And if you didn't enjoy it, don't tell us. No, just kidding. Yeah, Sharon saying, does Bob ever sleep? Yeah, Bob, how are you? My God, how are you doing all this? Tracy Crossway, Kira Dugan, the World War II book, shoe number 2, and doing all of these events, and the Left Coast Crime Guest of Honor, and Thriller Fest.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing it all, Bob.
Well, I got asked this at the conference I was just at, and I think there's a couple factors. One is I worked as a lawyer for about 15 years. So I know what it means to work hard, and I know what it means to put your butt in the chair and to go to work every day. And I really do that. But the other thing is I love telling stories. And when a good story pops up, it's really hard for me to walk away from it. I fell in love with this story so quickly. I got on the phone with my editor and I said, I think I got a new character. I think I got a new book. And, after explaining it to her, she was as excited as I was. So, fingers crossed that I hope your listeners and all the readers out there find this book as fascinating as I did.
Kim wants to know, do you enjoy researching as much as writing?
Love it. I love researching.
Me too.
It's funny. What people need to understand is that your scenes come out of your research. I'm not an outliner. I don't outline. So when I'm researching, I'm seeing my character at the racetrack. I'm seeing my character in the particular restaurant and what he's ordering. What did they have on their menu? What would he have ordered? What would he have done? I probably, like you, Sarah, I have to put a time limit because I will research forever. And I have to say, no, I need to start writing.
I am exactly the same. I'm such a nerd. I was a history minor because I love history. I love research. I could do this. Oh my goodness. Robin saying, well, I know I will be buying a book at LCC and getting it autographed. Yes, exactly. And Robin, I always have the author say something hilarious or scandalous. So I think you should add that to your Maven's challenge and post a picture of what Bob writes to you.
Yeah.
Chris says, ooh, tell me more about the writing process. Yeah. Okay. So you don't outline. What are you doing over there?
Well, it's changed over the years, and I'm always cautious when I'm talking to people because I teach the craft of writing, and I don't want people to get a misconception. I used to outline, and the problem was within the first day, I'd be off my outline, and I'd just be completely gone. And so the short of a long story is, at a point in my career, when I had been let go by a publisher and I had some time on my hand, I read Stephen King's book on writing. And he talked about, how he writes, the mystery of writing. And shortly thereafter, I was at a conference in Surrey, British Columbia, and I heard Diana Gabaldon speak about allowing the magic to happen. And the short of a long story is, what I do is I do a lot of research. The characters start to take form, and then I really do my best to get out of the way. I do my best to just sit and listen and let them tell me the story. And that first draft, I don't edit. I just let the story come. And, I'm not sure where it's going. I'm not sure what the theme is. I'm not sure of anything until I get to the very end. And then I'm able to look at 450 pages and go, I see it. Now I know what it's about. And then I go back to page 1 and I just start to go through it because now I know what the ending is. I know all those other things.
Mary Lou says, who is going to tell the story of the racetrack, and has he talked to you yet?
Shoe. Yeah, it's going to be William Schumacher.
Okay.
He's going to get another phone call, and it's going to be Ernie Blunt. And Ernie Blunt's going to say to him, I got another story for you. We got a death down at the Long Acres racetrack. Do you want it? And he's going to be very conflicted. But of course, he doesn't have a choice. It's still 1933. He's still trying to make a living, and he's a newspaper reporter. And so I think I'm going to base it on a true story that took place in your neck of the woods up in New York at your racetrack up there. There was a very mysterious unsolved death that took place of a jockey. And so I think I'm going to somehow work that in, but we'll see. You never really know.
God. I'm so excited. So I think he is talking to you then.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. They're in full conversation, Mary Lou. Great question. Oh my gosh. Y'all, we are having so much fun. Oh, Renee wants to know, what would he order? Would it be turtle soup?
No.
No.
Back then, the place where he would go, he'd try to order the least expensive thing that he could.
Oh my
So
God,
if he could get away with a cup of coffee, he'd order a cup of coffee. But he finds himself in a predicament, and you'll know why when you read the book. So he ends up ordering himself a hamburger, and he just wants to have a hamburger. But he ends up having a hamburger and a cocktail, and the whole time he's counting how much money he has in his wallet, in his pocket. Can he pay for this? So what you'd expect from a 19-year-old guy without any money. There's no frills here. He's not looking for filet mignon and potatoes. He's just literally trying to find the most inexpensive thing that he can.
Oh, I love that, Bob. Oh, thank you for that historical detail. And Renee, I liked your historical detail about the turtle soup. Sharon saying we should co-write a book. You never know. You never know. Y'all, we are having so much fun, but we are over time because we're having too much fun and the time went past. So get the pre-orders going for A Killing on the Hill. Here is that link from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, one of 3 dedicated mystery and thriller bookstores in the country. It is, of course, Murder by the Book. And here is that link to get your mitts. That's a historically correct term, on A Killing on the Hill. Y'all, thank you for spending your Mystery Monday with us. I hope your week is off to a killer start. May the days and the pages fly by. I will see you all next week. Mr. Dugoni, thank you as always. You have been, someone said, an enigmatic and talented writer, and you have been the same as a guest. Thank you all. Thank you for all of the hearts, and I will see you all next Monday. Take care until then.
Bye-bye.